We're talking quarterbacks here on Patriots Today. Which top QB draft prospect would Alex Van Pelt prefer? You saw Caleb Williams, who is projected to go number one, Patriots sitting at number three. Maybe Drake Maye is the guy for New England. Jayden Daniels, could he be a potential fit as well? We're going to dive into all three of those quarterbacks and how they fit, the pros and cons of how they could be in New England under Alex Van Pelt's offense, coming up right now. I'm Harrison Graham from Chat Sports. You're watching Patriots Today. Which quarterback would Alex Van Pelt prefer? That is the question we're going to try to answer here on today's show. But we want you guys to answer it first. Pick a quarterback. Forget if you have to trade up, trade all this and that money. None of that matters. If you could have any of these guys, who would you pick? If you want Caleb Williams, type CW. If it's Drake Maye, type DM. Maybe you want Jayden Daniels, type JD. Pick a quarterback, and we're going to dive into these three guys on today's show. Sophie Weller having the note from Rap Sheet, Ian Rappaport, that Alex Van Pelt, new Patriots offensive coordinator, will have a heavy hand in the future franchise quarterback for the Patriots. Quote, he's really the perfect Patriots-type coach. In this case, it seems like Gerard Mayo got it right. While that remains to be seen, what also remains to be seen is what are they going to do at quarterback? So let's talk about Caleb Williams first. I mentioned earlier he is the projected number one overall pick out of USC. He's been that for really since back to his Oklahoma days when he took over for Spencer Rattler with how he played. But certainly once he won the Heisman Trophy in 2022, he's been considered that top guy for 2 years. And while he didn't finish incredibly strong last year, experts still expect him to go number one, which if the Bears keep that pick, I would expect them to take him. But if not, if they're willing to trade it, maybe New England can get up there. You look at some pros and cons, Rolly, and we'll do this for all three of these guys. The arm talent with Caleb jumps off the page, and this isn't just like he can throw the ball far. He's got the incredible arm angles, very quick release. He can throw on the run. He can throw in the pocket. He can throw the fastball. He can layer footballs. That's not really a question. Neither is the experience and production. And his creation, I think, is what really kind of gets him to those Mahomes type of comps with he's just spinning out of sacks and doing wild stuff with the football. I think that's where people are like, whoa, this guy's a highlight reel.
I mean, you just see what he's able to do on a daily basis. It feels like every time you watch him play, he just does one play game where it's just like, well, holy shit. I don't know if there's 2 or 3 people in the entire world that can do what he just did right there, which makes him such an intriguing prospect. And you mentioned the experience. I mean, 2 years of being the full-time starter, but then he also basically became the starter his freshman year in the second half of the season.
Basically a 2.5-year starter.
So, I mean, he's been just a starter ever since putting on a collegiate uniform, and he's been able to perform time after time after time, and there's a reason why he was dubbed the best prospect since Andrew Luck. Now, there are a lot of people like Daniel Jeremiah who actually tweeted today he had a higher grade on Andrew Luck than he currently does, at least right now, on Caleb Williams. So this move the sticks on Twitter still believes Andrew Luck is a better prospect coming out of Stanford.
Either way, if you're in the Andrew Luck discussion, I think that speaks high volumes. Now, obviously, there's some cons here. I mean, I think he tries to go Superman too much, which kind of ties point 1 and point 2 together at times. He holds the ball too long, tries to take the home run. He if you watch his tape, he'll turn down checkdowns sometimes because he's trying to do the big play, which you'd rather have the opportunity to coach that out of him than the opposite, right? Where you get these guys on tape that just take the easy stuff, but they're missing big opportunities. It's about reining that in, whichever coaching staff gets him. Numbers do dip against top 25 opponents. That was the thing with Andrew Luck as well coming out, which not a shocker necessarily, right? Like tougher competition, tougher results at times, but certainly you want him to play his best against the best. So if you want to count that against him as well. But very good prospect. I don't think anybody would be upset if the Patriots ended up with this guy.
No, and the truth around Caleb Williams and the issue that I have when I try to envision who the next Patriots quarterback is going to be is, listen, if you want Caleb Williams, you're going to have to trade up to number 1. That's just a simple fact. It's not an opinion. That is what you're going to have to do. And is it worth, at least with this Patriots team right now, unloading all of their assets in the draft at least to go move up and take Caleb Williams? There's a lot of holes that need to be filled on this Patriots roster, and you're going to need future draft capital as well to continue building out this roster under Jerod Maye. We still don't know who the official GM is going to be. Right now, it feels like a combination of Elliott Wolf, Groh, and Mayo making decisions, at least this offseason. But who knows how that goes. And my question is, are you willing to give up your first-round pick this year, the second-round pick this year in all likelihood, and probably another first-round pick next year, if not a second-round pick as well? You're just going to have to unload a lot of draft capital for this guy, and is that the right move? I don't really think it is, because I think Maye and Jayden Daniels are not on his level, but they're knocking on the door. It's not, to me, that crazy of a differential.
Well, here's my thing too, Rolly. Like, ask yourself this question. Are you Caleb Williams away from being a title contender? I would say no right now. A year from now, could that be the case? If you fill other gaps? Yeah. I kind of feel like the Patriots are not in as bad of a way, but they're similar to where the Bears were when they traded the number one pick last year, where they knew they were probably 2 off seasons away from being a top playoff contender. Now, could the Patriots, if they have a great offseason, be a wild card type of team next year? Yes, but they're not a Super Bowl team next year. This is a 2-year rebuild in all likelihood. So I'm with Rolly in saying that, yeah, Caleb Williams is awesome. I would take him number 1, but they're not picking 1. They're picking 3. Stand pat at 3. You got 3 good quarterback options in this draft. Let the chips fall where they may. Take the top one available at 3, and then pluck those other holes. You got to get another receiver or 2. You need help at tight end. You still need offensive line help. Like, you're not just a quarterback away. Like, most of this offense needs revamping. So I don't think it's worth trading major capital when you're going to need to add pieces next year in the draft as well, and you're going to lose some of those picks if you trade up for Caleb Williams. Now, what about you? Maybe you disagree. Maybe you think Caleb is the missing piece. Would you trade up for Caleb Williams? Type Y for yes, type N for no. I don't think the Patriots are in a spot yet where it makes sense to do that, so I would type my N for no. Now, hit that subscribe button for free, by the way, here on Patriots Today. We're almost at 8,000 subscribers. We're covering the draft, free agency, and a whole lot more. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of the discussion around the New England Patriots. All right, let's shift to Drake Maye. And I think with both these next 2 quarterbacks, there are avenues where both could, where either way could happen. If I could talk, Maye could fall to 3, Daniels could fall to 3. I think Caleb has separated himself up to this point in the draft process, but Drake or Jayden, depending on what Washington could do, which I think is very unclear, could be there at number 3, Rolly, which is why I think staying there is probably going to be the thing that makes most sense.
Yeah, I mean, I've always tussled and turned with the idea of taking MHJ at 3. I've now kind of leaned fully into, well, you take whatever quarterback is there at 3, and the good news is that they all bring something different to the table on a good way, but they also all bring different weaknesses as well. When you look at Drake Maye, yeah, the stats regressed from year 1 to year 2. A lot of that can be, well, you lose your offensive coordinator. Phil Longo was the OC in Chapel Hill his first year as a starter. He left. They brought in Chip Lindsey. The offense didn't go as smooth. The pros for Maye, he can make all the throws from the pocket. He's very productive in 2 years. Like, when you just look at his grand total of stats, I know you saw on screen that it dipped down from year 1 to 2, but still 2 really solid years of production as a redshirt freshman and a redshirt sophomore. And he's a very good mobile athlete as well. Sneaky. I compare it to Josh Allen, where his frame of 6'4.5", 6'5", I'll be intrigued to see where he weighs in and measures in at height as well, because he's 230 pounds. Like, his size and build is something that is also very enticing for a quarterback in this league today.
Yeah, he's got the best frame of these 3 quarterbacks. There's no doubt about it. Caleb's probably going to be 6'1" or so. He's plenty thick, he's got good size, but he's thick and he's tall. He's not going to have balls getting batted down very often at the line of scrimmage. So, and with that build, he's got the athleticism as well. So he's got the full package from just a physical architectural standpoint. There's a reason he gets the Justin Herbert comp. 6'4", 6'5", 225, 230, rocket arm. He's built like a modern, mobile, athletic quarterback.
Yeah, but listen, I love Drake Maye. He's my number 1 guy. It just probably biased. It is biased, but he is my guy. But
It's
he's
close.
not perfect. He's only started the 2 years. When you look at in comparison to Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels, who we'll get to in just a second, Jayden Daniels, damn near 5-year starter.
Yeah.
You have Caleb Williams, who basically was a 3-year starter after not playing the first 4 or 5 games his freshman year. Drake is sometimes careless. There are times where he makes interesting decisions, to say the least, and that kind of careless play leads into the final con, is that he hardly ever slides. He puts his body in harm's way like the Josh Allen that we always mention. Now, Josh Allen's able to hold up for the most part, but not every quarterback can, and you don't want your QB diving headfirst on the defensive players and risking injury where you're out for 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, again, and I said this with Caleb, you'd rather have guys who think they can make every play than guys who are too conservative with the football. It's about finding that balance. At times Maye leaves clean pockets too early, but he thinks, and a lot of time he's correct, and he can make the big-time play down the field. And what I do like about Maye and Caleb, this is true for both of them, is when they do escape, while they can run and they've shown that ability, they're usually trying to throw when they get out of the pocket. They both do a nice job of keeping their eyes downfield to try to make big plays with their arm. I think they're both advanced in that area, so I'm a big fan of that. So I like Drake Maye. I think he's still improving, which is a positive as well. I don't think he's a finished product. Not that any of these guys are, but Jaden Daniels in comparison, right? Like, he's a 5-year guy, and yeah, he took a big step forward this year. I don't think he has as much room to grow as a Drake Maye, as a Caleb Williams. So keep that in mind, as all these quarterbacks have had different paths and different directions to the NFL draft. We'll talk Jayden Daniels in just a moment, but if you want to get yourself a Patriots hat, we have plenty on sale. Chatsports.com/Pats hats. Different styles. You got the winter hats, you got the mesh hats, flat bill, snapback, whatever you're looking for. Check it out today. Chatsports.com/Pats hats. Get yourself a brand new lid right now. All right, let's get to Jayden Daniels here, the LSU quarterback who's had quite the journey. 3-year starter at Arizona State, transfers to LSU, finishes his second to last year strong, and then just leaves the runway in year 5, Rolly. I mean, the raw numbers really stand out for what he was able to do this past year and ultimately winning a Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, I mean, it's really crazy that he really exploded on the scene. I don't know where he was projected to go in the NFL draft going into the collegiate season. I don't think it was even in the first 2 days, if we're going to be honest. I think it was like a 4th-round projection.
In a lot of ways, it's Joe Burrow-esque. Now, let's be clear. I'm not making the lazy LSU 5th-year guy becomes potential top 3 pick like Burrow, but it is similar in the sense that they both could have gone pro before their 5th year, but they would have been like middle rounds at best. They go back to college. Burrow has one of the craziest seasons in college football history. Jayden Daniels has a similarly productive type of season, at least. Obviously didn't win as much as Burrow, but they did themselves favors in an era where a lot of guys go pro a year early, if anything. They came back and benefited from it, and Daniels was really able to put his full skill set on display. The mobility is off the charts, and all 3 are mobile, but this guy is like a straight line runner. Like, anybody that drafts this quarterback, that has to be part of the offense. QB sweeps, QB powers, zone read at times. That's got to be built in there. Very good deep ball. Look, he doesn't have the rocket launcher that the other 2 guys have, but the touch he displays on the vertical passing role is very, very impressive.
And the thing that makes me very intrigued by Jayden Daniels is deep ball. Maybe you're thinking 45, 50 yards downfield. I'm thinking 25, 30. Like, the amount of back shoulders, the fades he hit.
Just the 3-step drop fades, you know what I mean?
The 25 to 30-yard lines, like, they're just outside the red zone. Those little touch passes he hit with Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors in the back corner of the end zone, they were so elite. He can drop them in the bucket. And like we mentioned with the other guy, too, Caleb Williams, like, he's got a lot of experience, which might kind of show you that he's maybe not – he's obviously going to develop, but, like, there's maybe not as high as a ceiling as the other 2 quarterbacks, but he's going to come in and you know what you have because he's a lot of tape on screen. But with everyone, there are cons. The biggest con to me is his frame. He's 6'4", like Drake Maye. Instead of 230, he's 210. How is that going to hold up against NFL defenders?
Well, and I also want to see what he actually weighs in as. Now, there's no doubt, like you just go watch his first year at LSU, his second year, there's no doubt he put on weight. But he also transferred to LSU at a $185. So is he 210 or is he 200? Like that's a big difference to me because the history in the NFL, guys who are sub 215, not a lot of success. So I'd really feel more comfortable if he's at least that 210 number. And you mentioned Drake Maye doesn't slide. Jayden Daniels doesn't slide. He takes a shit ton of big hits. Kid's tough as hell. Micah Parsons hits you like that, though, you might be out 2 to 4 weeks with a broken rib. So while you need to build a running attack with the quarterback, with Jayden Daniels, he's got to understand, Roley, when and when not to take those hits. Obviously, third downs, late in games, whatever, yeah, you're more willing to put your body on the line. If it's 1st and 10 and you could slide down for a gain of 8 instead of getting 11 yards and taking a hit, take the 8 and let's get to the next play. Like, you got to understand how to protect yourself in this league.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And we posed the question at the beginning of the show of which quarterback does Alex Van Pelt want? We talked about Caleb. We talked about Drake. We talked about Jaden Daniels. We obviously do not know who exactly Alex Van Pelt is going to want. But to me, I think the answer, after looking at his offense a little bit more and talking about these quarterbacks, there's no bias. I do think Drake Maye actually fits the Alex Van Pelt offense better out of these 3 guys. He's got that big, tall mode, the West Coast offense, the type of Stafford like zone running attack, and then you play action bootleg off of it with Drake Maye. I just think he's the one who fits that potential Van Pelt offense the best. And if he really does have that pull of what we mentioned earlier of him having a massive hand in picking the next quarterback potentially for the Patriots, I think once he gets into those rooms, sees the film, I think he'll go with Drake Maye. And someone who I respect in the Patriots beat reporter lane, Evan Lazar, was asked about this question as well, because they said, do you think Maye could run this offense under Van Pelt? And he said, would be ideal, under center shot plays off play action, bootlegs, empty spread sprinkled in, has Drake Maye written all over it. I completely agree. And if Van Pelt really has full control, I can absolutely see him circling in on Drake Maye as his guy in the draft.
Yeah, and look, let's just be honest. You're not going up to 1. And if you want Caleb, that's what it's going to take. And I do agree, for this system, and I just like Maye better than Daniels as an overall prospect regardless, but especially for this type of offense, I do think Maye gives you a higher ceiling here and probably a higher floor as well, which we always talk about ceiling, Roley. The high floor is important also. Like,
yeah.
And that's what made Mac Jones so disappointing these past couple of years, is because you at least thought the floor was pretty good there, and the floor just like plummeted. And when his ceiling wasn't nearly as high as some of the other quarterbacks in that draft, that really is why you're ultimately moving on here. I think Maye and Williams offer high floors and high ceilings, which is valuable because at minimum, I think you're getting a starter in this league. Now it's up to him and the coaching staff and the pieces around him to elevate him to elite starter. Because that's ultimately what you're looking for when you pick in the top 3. All right, guys, deep dive into the top 3 prospects there. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Shout out to Roley for putting this together for us. We will see you guys soon. Go Pats.